Big laughs, big stories and big opinions. It's time for another Headliners. I'll be joined by two top comedians having a romp through tomorrow's newspapers. But first, here are the headlines with Polly.
Good evening. The top story tonight: Russia will be punished with a package of sweeping measures if its troops enter Ukraine, according to Downing Street. It follows frank discussions today between the US and Russia in Geneva, designed to ease tensions. Russia's Foreign Secretary Sergei Lavrov insisted his country had never threatened the Ukrainian people and had no plans to invade. But the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Moscow needs to choose now between diplomacy or conflict.
So that's the choice that Russia faces now. It can choose the path of diplomacy that can lead to peace and security, or the path that will lead only to conflict, severe consequences, and international condemnation.
Antony Blinken. Well, earlier the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss called on Russia to desist and step back from Ukraine. Speaking in Australia, she said an invasion would lead to a terrible loss of life.
That's why we urge President Putin to desist and step back from Ukraine before he makes a massive strategic mistake.
Liz Truss. Well, in other news today, the Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng has told GBNews that claims Conservative whips were blackmailing MPs over the distribution of public funds are ridiculous. His comments follow reports that rebels were threatening to publish secret text messages and recordings from the Prime Minister's supporters.
Any idea that the whip's office have this in their gift, I think, should be challenged immediately. And clearly, if these allegations are true, that's a very, very serious allegation, and I'd want to see them properly investigated.
Kwasi Kwarteng. A 26-year-old man who is obsessed with the devil is facing life in prison for killing one woman and attacking two more in the space of 4 hours. Brian Sengendo killed a 44-year-old woman in North London last August. Earlier the same night, he targeted two other women. He's been found guilty of 7 charges, including murder, attempted murder, kidnap and rape. The judge praised police for catching a potential serial killer. He'll be sentenced in March. A suspected drug trafficker has been arrested in Spain just days after he was named as one of the UK's most wanted. 30-year-old Joshua Hendry was caught in Marbella after an off-duty police officer recognised him from the publicity. He's alleged to have trafficked heroin and cocaine from Liverpool to Grimsby. And entertainment news, just lastly tonight, stars including Cher, Brian May and Bonnie Tyler have all been paying tribute to the US rock singer Meat Loaf, who's died at the age of 74. The singer, who sold more than 100 million albums, passed away with his wife at his side. His career had spanned 6 decades and saw him becoming a global star with hits like that one we just heard, I'd Do Anything for Love, and this, A Bat Out of Hell. He also starred in 65 movies, including the Rocky Horror Picture Show and Wayne's World. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+, you're with GB News. Now, it's Headliners.
I am Mark Dolan. It's time now for Headliners, a comedic romp through tomorrow's papers, tonight in the company of Andrew Doyle and Nick Dixon. But first, let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages, and we'll start with the Daily Mail. And here's what they are saying. It's time to spike the tax hike, say the Mail. Painful national insurance rise hits in weeks as living costs soar. Now MPs and businesses join the Mail in calling for a delay to spare families. A hike in national insurance this April must be stopped to help families survive a cost of living crisis, say the Mail and some leading Conservative backbenchers. Next up, the Times. PM beefs up top team as leadership fears mount. New lieutenants will track loyalty of every MP. How about the Daily Telegraph? Government seeks to gag BBC over spy story. Attorney General to go to the High Court for an injunction to avoid risk to people's lives. Teach in person or give refunds, universities told. I think that's a very good idea. I don't think I attended many face-to-face lectures when I was an undergraduate, but I'm not sure I'm in a position to ask for my money back. Also, church to take a more softly approach to seating. Churches will find it easier to put cushions on pews as officials intend to relax rules on adding soft furnishings to help meet environmental targets. There you go. Faith and the eco agenda all rolled into one story. The FT, Netflix mauling deepens tech rout, a drop in $48 billion in relation to Netflix's value. How about the weekend? NHS in talks on jabs U-turn to save 70,000 staff from the sack. Government actively considering a pause to mandatory COVID vaccines for NHS workers. Well, that news, in my view, couldn't come too soon. The Independent, farewell to rock powerhouse Meat Loaf. The Grammy Award-winning Bat Out of Hell artist died yesterday at the age of 74 with his wife by his side. Brand Boris damaged permanently by scandal. Well, there's a surprise. Election guru warns Johnson unlikely to recover from Partygate. This according to Lord Hayward, a former advisor to the Conservative Party and a polling expert. The Guardian, show us all the evidence on number 10 parties, Johnson told. Is it just me, or are you over Partygate? Because I know I am. How about this? The Daily Mirror, Meat Loaf dies of COVID. We're going to have a chat about Meat Loaf very shortly, but a great photograph of the big man in his pomp. I don't know how you referred to the great man when he was alive. Do you call him Meat, Mr. Loaf? What was the etiquette? Daily Express. Virus kills Meat Loaf. If I die, but I won't be controlled. And Wonder Pill to fight COVID and the flu. A Wonder Pill that fights both COVID and influenza could be the next exciting secret weapon in the war on viruses. Fans fury as Adele axes Vegas gig. And last but not least, the Daily Star. War of the Worlds. It's intergalactic geopolitics, Jim, but not as we know it. Hardman Russian President Vladimir Putin has scared off extraterrestrials from visiting Earth by being too rough, says a top UFO sleuth. Vladimir Putin's warmongering has frightened off aliens from visiting Earth, says Britain's top ET hunter. What a strange job. Nearly as strange as mine. Let's crack on. Strange but brilliant, and especially tonight with this elite lineup of top comedians I have looking at tomorrow's newspapers. From the mean streets of Kendal, this guy had to fight his way to the top. Unfortunately, he didn't quite get there. Here he is, Nick Dixon.
What? Outrageous.
You're on your way. In fact, you made it now,
This
baby.
is the top.
You are on headliners, my friend. And our other guest, a man who can trace his lineage back to King Agnar of Arundel. So he's quite literally a count. I've always thought you were a count.
I mean, they've just made that up, haven't they? I didn't know anything about it. But if that's true, if they've done the research, I'll take it.
You've got blue blood.
Apparently so.
Yeah, I think
Brilliant.
you should see a doctor about that one.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a cream you can get.
I'm sure there is.
Now, let's crack on, because lots of interesting stories in the papers. This is a tough one to start with, Nick, but I think we can speak in celebration of the life and career of Meat Loaf.
Absolutely. Of course. It was amazing. I mean, do you remember when Meat Loaf came out with songs like I Would Do Anything for Love, and it was just like this huge event on Top of the Pops?
Yeah.
It was before we had YouTube, and it was like that was all we could watch. It was like a massive thing. You were like, this epic, really long video.
And what's he going to do in the video?
Yeah. People won't realise that now, the kids. They won't get what a big thing that is. It was like when Michael Jackson had that video, and at the end he smashed up a car and turned into a panther. People would talk about this at school. It was like a big event. And, he was also a great actor. He was in Fight Club, which is a key movie of my generation. He was very good in The US Apprentice with the brilliant talk show host Donald J. Trump. And, and he also, there's some amazing stories of him coming out. My favourite is that he had this run-in with Prince Andrew, where he felt Andrew was being a bit jealous of him and tried to push him into a moat. And then he grabbed Andrew and said, I don't give a bleep who you are. If you do that to me, you're going in the moat.
Proved to be an excellent judge of character. I mean, these guys, he is sort of part of a bygone era, isn't he, Meat Loaf? A proper sort of rock star that just doesn't care.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he transcends eras. And I think the reason for that is that his sort of style, this sort of bombastic, theatrical, rock opera style, there's a real sense of humour at the heart of it, and it's something that it doesn't take itself too seriously. And therefore, it probably won't age that badly, And I think, I was looking earlier at a clip from Rocky Horror Show. He was in the Rocky Horror Show. He's only got one song in that, but it's brilliant. The performance is fantastic. He's just a complete natural, so flamboyant, really interesting. I can't believe you're talking about his acting career. You didn't mention Spice World. That doesn't make sense to me, because that's the pinnacle. Surely that is the pinnacle of anyone's acting career. But I do think...
I'm the heterosexual one here. That's what it is.
Yes. Well, one of the things that I really like about Meatloaf is that his name apparently comes from him being bullied at school, and he was called Meatloaf because he was overweight. And he reclaimed it.
He owned it.
Made millions. I should do that with my nickname from school, Gay Boy Doyle, which I think I have reclaimed to an extent and made it work for me.
It's going to stick.
They all call you it affectionately now in the office.
Yeah, that's right. They do. Is that what it is? Is it
Well, apparently that's a microaggression, but...
It does feel a bit like a microaggression. I keep leaving muffins in my locker. What does that mean?
Those aren't muffins.
Oh, OK. Well, I won't touch them then. I will say that I think Meatloaf was a tremendously talented performer. I think the key to his success very much was his collaboration with Jim Steinman, who really did sort of... you can tell a Jim Steinman song when you hear it, whether it's Meatloaf, whether it's Bonnie Tyler singing it, not just because they always have brackets in the title of the songs, but because they have that, as I say, this theatrical...
A bit operatic.
Exactly, not like your traditional rock and roll, and you combine that with the sort of hellish imagery and the bats and the motorcycle. It's quite funny.
I think you're right as well that it was never really in style, so it can never go out of style.
That's it.
That's the key, isn't it? But what do you think it was when he said, "I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that"? I think it was going to IKEA on the weekend. What do you think it was?
Yeah, I think so. Just when IKEA opens at like 10 a.m. on a Saturday, when people are queuing up outside.
Exactly. Yes, that's what he was singing about.
Well, I think that's a legitimate limit. I think for a couple.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think
Or is it staying for food at IKEA? Would you not do that for love?
No, as a vegetarian, definitely not the meatballs.
I'm completely single. I'm just imagining what normal people do. I've got no idea.
What would you not do for love? The mind boggles. It's a family show. Keep it clean. Now, this next story from the Daily Record has Scots divided over the great constitutional question of our time. Should England kick Scotland out of the Union, Andrew?
Well, I mean, do you want me to answer that? Because it's not for me to decide.
Definitely
of course, it is for the people of Scotland to decide. And this is the latest findings are suggesting that it's deadlocked. So it's sort of 50-50 either way. And there's all sorts of things to consider. One of the good things, I think, about Scottish independence is it would make the SNP obsolete. That would be great. Because their record is so absolutely appalling. I mean, just in terms of their rising drug problems in Scotland, which they've failed to get a grip of, the falling standards of literacy and numeracy, the underspending on the NHS, the fact that they're not prioritising that, their hate speech bill, which they put through this year, the most draconian of its kind, which criminalises private speech within your own home. There's a real issue with the SNP.
You're not a fan.
And actually, the imagery is that Boris Johnson's had a really bad COVID pandemic, but whether it's Freedom Day or light restrictions over Christmas and New Year, England has actually led the way in the whole of the UK when it comes to handling COVID.
And exactly, so there's the draconianism of Nicola Sturgeon when it comes to COVID as well. The problem here, of course, is they exist. The reason why they are successful is the popularity of the potential for Scottish independence, and people are willing. I know people who are all comedians in Scotland are pro-SNP, right? And they all say that they support them because of the independence issue, but they have real reservations about all these other things. And I think when you've got this kind of one-party situation, it's never good for any kind of democracy. So I'd love to see that sort of change. I'm
starting to feel like it's inevitable that we'll have Scottish independence. Like you said, we saw the difference with the COVID restrictions, how we dealt with them. That was a marked difference. You've got the fact that they don't like the Tories, they hate Johnson, they want to stay in the EU, which is a key point. The Scottish Conservative Party even starts to feel separate now.
Yeah.
And, of course, they say... Ian Blackford's very keen to say that it's not about hating English people being in the SNP, but then again, that did make the papers as a story, which suggests it might be a bit of an issue for them. But, yeah, I'm not saying they do. But, I wonder... I mean, here's a whimsical point. When I grew up, we used to talk about ourselves as English. We were told we were English. We used to always write English in the forms. And then at some point, I feel like around Blair's time, it became British. But you'd never get a Scottish person saying they're British, would you? Or even a Welsh person, probably.
Sometimes, Gordon Brown.
But an English person would say they're British. And it's almost like frowned upon to say...
Britishness is like an English idea, almost.
Well, I'm just wondering, it's almost like frowned upon to say you're English now, isn't it? Because it's got some sort of bad association. But you would never get... What do you think?
Isn't it more just that there's a kind of fun in sort of being sort of from the smaller nation? I remember when I was in Wales once and I went into... There was a bargain basement in Woolworths with videos, old videos, and one of them was Welsh rugby victories against the English. It was an actual video you could buy.
Brilliant.
And I thought that's kind of harmless fun, isn't it? It's like, because this is the country that isn't historically as powerful as England, so I don't know if that's really... But I think it's interesting what you say about them the SNP defining themselves against the English, which I think is relevant when it comes to the Brexit debate. And it's also relevant because, of course, this story in the Daily Record, the fact that the momentum for Scottish independence is back up again is largely because the SNP have framed or reframed the question of Scottish independence as a question on the back of Brexit. In other words, we need independence so that we can rejoin the EU. But how preposterous to say that you want to seek your independence by joining a big bureaucratic, undemocratic bloc.
Yeah.
I mean, what an incredible
That's
concept.
the
Although,
irony,
if it were to happen, I don't want it to happen. I've lived in Scotland for 4 years, incredible country, and I love the union.
I've got
but-
Scottish cousins. Let's just get all that part in. Not anti-Scotland.
And do you want independence because you want to get rid of them, or what?
No, I don't. I don't want it. If Scottish
You don't have
people,
to speak to them anymore.
if the Scottish people want it, of course they have to be granted it. But I'm not saying I want it by any means.
Yeah, and I don't want it to happen, but one positive is that in the end, you'd have these different countries and these different nationalities, and Scotland would enter the EU, and then the EU would have to sort out an issue about the single market and the border, and that would get rid of the Northern Ireland Protocol.
All right,
Because
interesting.
Scotland would be connected to England, which is not in the single market. Sort that one out, Brussels.
Yeah.
But do you really think it's to do with Brexit or to do with Johnson's recent dip in popularity?
I think there's that as well. I think
Okay.
that's
Is
to
dip
do-
the right
I think-
word?
I think
Collapse?
Yeah, I'm in complete free
I'm
fall,
being
isn't it?
generous. I'm
Earthquake?
saying dip.
But I think there's good reasons for English people want to retain the union. I mean, for one thing, for sports, we can claim all the Scottish sporting stuff. We can claim Sheena
Oh, yeah.
Easton as
Correct.
one of ours.
That was funny.
You know.
When we were in the Euros, we were England. Donald Trump said, and they're playing as England. That's interesting. You don't hear that word a lot. We were England. But you're right, we can claim more people. if
I don't
we
like the
go for it.
idea of a hefty levy on Tunnock's tea cakes. I don't fancy that too much.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we eat an almost toxic amount of those things.
Yeah.
They sort of
I
just
hadn't
dissolve in
considered
your
that.
mouth. It's almost a metaphysical experience eating a Tunnock's tea cake. Didn't Tunnock's get in trouble for calling their product a great British product?
They did. They've been in trouble a few times, actually, Tunnock's. I can't remember now why, but I can't eat them because they've got gelatin in. So it's,
Oh, you're on this vegan kick.
no, it's not a kick. I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian before it was fashionable. I'm a trendsetter.
You're not, Andrew, I'm beginning to think you're none of the things I've read about you on Twitter.
I know, it's
I
weird.
thought you
isn't
were a
it?
carnivorous, heterosexual monster.
Right-wing, public school educated
Yeah.
monster. Yeah, I know.
Those are the DMs I've been receiving.
I'm trying to grow into that role because that's what everyone tells me I am.
He doesn't even eat gelatin, guys.
Wow. I'm quite happy. I'm taking out of this that Tunnock's tea cakes have got protein in them. That's one of your 5 a day. Happy days. Now, you've got some good news from the Metro, Nick.
Oh, have I? What's that?
Well, I think it's...
The
I think it's
Gigafactories.
The Gigafactory, yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, yeah, it doesn't say Metro here. This is in the Metro, guys. British Gigafactory will cost $3.8 billion and create 3,000 jobs. There it is. And this is great because it's a huge gigafactory. Now, Elon Musk came up with this term. It basically means a massive factory. That's basically that. And this is set to be built in Northumberland, and it's an electric vehicle battery factory which will employ 3,000 people and create another 5,000 jobs. So, of course, I'm in favour of this because it's jobs for my people in the Red Wall who I'm going to, campaign for in later life.
But aren't you, wouldn't you be
Go on.
worried? If I work there, all I could worry about is if my locker is at the other end of the factory.
I hadn't thought of that, Mark. And you've
Yeah.
got your Tunnock's tea cakes in there.
Yeah.
And you can't get to them for about 2 days.
You use half your lunch break just getting to the loo.
Yeah, these are the things
I thought gigafactory meant gigawatts. It's nothing to do with the size of the factory. I don't
No,
want to correct you on this. I thought it meant it was to do with gigawatts, and because they're producing
No.
batteries, aren't they? They're producing electrical batteries.
I don't think it's that.
That's what it says in the Metro. I don't
Really?
know, let's not have a row about this. People can Google that themselves.
No, the term giga can be applied to gigawatts, but it also just derives from gigas, which means giant.
Oh well, who knows?
Andrew, there's no place for facts here. Not on this show.
I don't want an etymological argument.
I think
you know.
Can we
I
not
think
have
he's-
facts on my watch, please?
I think he's bang
This is all
wrong.
about
It's not a
emotions and
fact.
opinions.
It's fake news. It's not even true.
I don't
not
think
even true.
Gigafactory sounds like
He's
this sort of...
You're just trying to humiliate me on TV, Andrew. It's not even true.
That's the act. That's what this is. I think it's sort of word that teenagers use when
Right.
they sort of like planning global domination,
Well, maybe. I mean, this is the
I
new
Googled
world.
the
though.
definition
Okay,
just before I
all
came
right.
on. It didn't say that.
But this is the new world, isn't it? This is the harbinger of the new electrical. They're creating these batteries. It's all going to be Teslas, isn't it? And that's, I'm scared of progress.
Well, I think we all are, but we will have to progress because we've got so many great stories to come. Don't go anywhere. I've got some burning issues to get through, including big trouble for Netflix. Who knew? Find out more after this. A
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners, a light-hearted romp through tomorrow's papers with myself, Mark Dolan, always in the host chair Friday, Saturday and Sunday. With me tonight, the kings of the street, Nick Dixon and Andrew Doyle. Now, I'm afraid to say we're going to kick off with a really, really tough and difficult, awful story. Andrew, tell us about something in the Times. Overdue legislation in India for an awful crime.
Yes, and this is based on the concept that it is not possible to commit an act of rape within marriage, and this new legislation would rectify that horrendous problem. And a lot of men in India are saying that they are now going to boycott marriage because of this. They're saying that the court should absolutely not interfere within an affair between a husband and wife. And, you know, all that this is, of course, is, you know, when you have any kind of society that is deeply patriarchal, this kind of thing happens. Women's rights are degraded.
Yeah.
People consider women as property. But let's not get cocky here, because this was only decriminalised in the UK in 1991.
Yeah.
And, you know, I recently read Julie Bindle's book about feminism. I believe she might even mention that fact. And it's this... You know, it's this idea that, you know, they are catching up with this more progressive and important point. But the fact that they're boycotting it and they're putting out these hashtags about marriage strike, they're going to, you know, I would have thought actually this is, if rapists or people who want to rape are going to boycott marriage, that strikes me as a bonus, doesn't it, for the people who might have got trapped in that. You know, I think it's a lucky escape for the women.
It's a welcome boycott, absolutely. And Andrew raises a good point. We've got to get our own house in order. Clearly, I suspect our problems might not be on the scale of those in India, but domestic abuse is a criminally underreported thing. And, you know, whether it's violence or indeed, you know, sexual assaults on family members and loved ones, you know, domestic abuse is a big problem.
Yes, we're supposed to provide balance, but it's not really one of these stories where I want to comment on the pro side.
No, of course.
So, I mean, I don't really know what to say on this one. There were some strange comments about it as well. One person commented, "These days, women are demonesses. Their only intention is to dig maximum gold from men." That was one of the comments. Yeah. I disagree. Well, Andrew said he agreed with that. But,
what, back there? No.
Yeah.
I mean, but the thing is, though, that's the point, is that someone who would say that and mean it is a misogynist, and it's probably pretty lucky for the woman he would have married that he's going to do a marriage strike. That's all I'd say about that. If you think women are demonesses.
Yeah, pretty nasty stuff. Our next story from Saturday's Guardian is about global migration and economics, but it's not as boring as it sounds, is it, Nick?
It's very exciting. Guatemala's economy buoyed by record 15 billion sent home from workers overseas. So, have you been to Guatemala, by the way?
No, I haven't.
Have you been?
No.
I've been.
Have
You
you?
didn't see that coming, did you?
No,
I know.
absolutely. I didn't think you left your flat.
Right, I know. I'm shocked.
I didn't know you'd been to, like, as far as Crouch End.
I know.
You have
I
a
know.
passport and everything.
It's shocking, isn't it?
Wow.
We're all shocked. Stunning moment on the headliners.
How did you go down in Guatemala? Are they loving the Dixon?
They love me, yes. They treated me as a kind of god. But
Did you receive a garland on entry into the country?
Of course, they knew I was coming.
You've been watching Indiana Jones or something.
I'm not sure a garland is culturally specific to Guatemala,
It's a
by the way.
beautiful place.
Maybe some coffee beans.
Yes, coffee. They're great for coffee. They've got incredible lakes, got incredible greenery.
Cocaine, of course.
I did notice, yes, some poverty, which is this story touches on. I tried to buy boxer shorts there, and they were all too small. Don't read into that.
So you went to a market.
But,
you went to a market. You're like,
they're quite small.
Are you sure you don't want cocaine? No, it really is boxer shorts, please.
And quite interesting. Yeah,
Too small, the boxers.
They're quite small
Look
people
at
in
you.
Guatemala.
Oh, that's your story.
I didn't mean to bring that
Was
up.
that a humble brag on national TV?
It really
Is this story
wasn't.
about
It's
your
a fact.
boxers?
It's a fact. This story, let's get back to the story. You're absolutely right, Andrew.
The story is
This
your boxer shorts.
I just wondered if you'd been to Guatemala, that was all. So the story is that, and I did notice when I was over there, they had some strange economic rules, like you couldn't really save money, apparently, I heard. But they would save all their receipts even if they bought fast food and things, because they could get money back on that. So some strange economic policies. But this is about, they're actually doing, a lot of their money is coming from remittances, i.e. people sending back money from other countries. And so the criticism of them is that they don't actually want to stop this, because this is how they make their money. But it's not an ideal situation, and they have a very low minimum wage as well. So that's what the story is about.
Well, this is sort of inevitable, isn't it? If you've got any country with a low minimum wage and a high cost of living, and people will go abroad to earn money and send that money back to their families. This has been going on for a long time. But the problem when that happens is it disincentivizes the government to tackle these domestic problems, because why would they do that? Because, of course, it's all being solved from external forces. So, I think it is a problem.
Yeah, and the route out of poverty for these communities, these populations, is a strong economy. I'm a great believer in international aid, but really what needs to happen is each of these poorer nations needs its own business model, don't you think? One that works from home.
Yeah, you're right. And it is a pretty poor country. I was there. If you're in somewhere like Antigua, which is like the nice small city, but then as you move out towards some of these lakes, the real poverty out there. So yeah.
Yeah.
I actually saw it.
So how was your? What was the uptake of your underwear situation? How was it resolved?
I didn't really. I just
Oh dear, that's TMI, isn't it?
Well, I had some of my own.
Oh, I see.
Basically, people out there said, don't even bother bringing all your clothes. You can buy them out there. That was the point of that story. But it turns out you can't really buy them out there. Just FYI.
But what we've done is we've painted pictures, and I suspect boosted our audience in the process. Look at you sex kitten. Now, let's crack on with our next story. A new study has found a link between smoking and epigenetic body fat. Andrew, tell me more.
This is apparently an intergenerational study from the University of Bristol, and they've discovered, according to this research, because they were talking about how things can be passed through the generations, certain traits, they've discovered that women whose grandfathers began smoking at an early age tend to have more body fat. There's a very strange correlation here. So in other words, my father started smoking when he was 8 years old. So if I have a daughter, she's going to be massive. But that's basically what this research tells us. But it's a weird one, isn't it? Because it's one of those connections that you think, what is the point? What's the takeaway from this research? Is this just, do we now...
Don't smoke before age 13.
Don't smoke when you're young, because you might have plump grandchildren. Why not don't smoke before you're 13, because it gives you cancer? How about that?
Well,
I think that's probably a more important...
Did you see that also if your father started smoking, then it's the sons that get more body fat?
No, it's not. So the point...
No, in an earlier piece of work.
Oh, I see.
So in an earlier piece of work, it was discovered that if a father started smoking regularly before puberty, as you do, then his sons, but not daughters,
that's been overturned
had more
now.
body fat. And now, but they found that it's great-grandfathers and grandfathers will make the woman...
I think just don't smoke if you're a kid.
Perhaps it's the ultimate
Don't give children
disincentive.
cigarettes,
Well,
folks.
on those cigarette packets, and they've got photographs of like diseased lungs and things like that. Well, maybe they should actually. The ultimate deterrent is an artist's impression of your soon-to-be fat granddaughter. Just a very sort of jolly...
That would work.
Is this what you want?
Yeah.
That would be better than those horrible pictures of people with their hearts open and that's gory.
Just a really sort of jolly, rosy-cheeked,
You're actually
very
right
sort
about
of broad-hipped granddaughter.
I think that would be
just sort of
better.
brandishing a Toblerone.
And why are the smoking... Why are they fat-shaming, imaginary granddaughters?
Correct. Although, don't you think it's the ultimate excuse as well? Because that's fantastic. That's an alternative to heavy bones, isn't it? So if you have piled on the pounds...
Just say my granddad
Back in the day, it was always like, what did people say? Is that, it's thyroid, it's hormonal, got heavy bones. It's like, no, a cigar-chomping grandfather.
Yeah.
But you're right, because if they did have that picture, because people don't care about what happens to them, but they actually care much more about what happens to their children and things.
Too right.
So your idea would actually work.
Too right. Well, in the Telegraph, suspicious activity in the footballing world. Nick, tell me more.
Yes, FA looking into yellow cards shown to Arsenal player amidst suspicious betting activity. So essentially, an Arsenal player got a yellow card and there was a certain amount of betting activity around it that's made it seem a bit dodgy. And this has a bit of a history because in April 2018, Bradley Wood was banned for 6 years after twice intentionally getting booked during Lincoln City's FA Cup run. And he was found guilty of 2 match-fixing offences. And he also admitted to 22 charges of betting on the outcome of matches. And he told friends he would get booked in 2 matches. So this is the thing people do. They get booked on purpose.
So is it the point that lots of people have bet that this guy would get a yellow card and then he did? I mean, that is suspicious.
It is suspicious.
Of course, we can't assume he did that. But it is. Is this like when, you know, in Pulp Fiction, when Ving Rhames tells Bruce Willis to throw that boxing match because he's put a big bet on it?
It's exactly like it.
It's that idea.
And I love that your only sporting
100%.
references come from art movies.
It has.
Because you can't watch any sport
None at all. I had to sort of Google what a yellow card was.
Yeah, I might actually tomorrow take you down to a flagship Paddy Power and just take you through the basics of betting.
It would be quite good for me to know this stuff.
A little instructional session.
It's the basics of sport he needs more than betting. Both,
probably.
Really.
I mean,
I'll do the sport
as a person who's on a news channel regularly, I need to know this information. I don't know. It's a big gap in my knowledge.
Yes, you do need to
I need to
sort it
know
out.
what football's all about. I don't understand it.
And some people on Twitter speculated it was a certain... I'm not saying it is, but there was an incident where one of the Arsenal players was there in the 85th minute, deliberately taking ages over a free kick, just until he got booked. So people have speculated.
I mean, I get if he did it, which I'm sure he didn't, but if he did, you know, he needs the money. He needs to make a little... From what I hear, footballers don't earn... They don't earn very much.
That's exactly right. Put food on the table.
They've got to do that.
Yeah, pay for his next Ferrari. Well, of course, as Andrew said, we don't have the details of that, and certainly I'm confident those involved deny any allegations. Andrew, so let's have a look at the Telegraph. Of course, trouble brewing in the Ukraine.
Ongoing trouble in the Ukraine. Obviously, this is these talks that have been going on in Geneva, and it turns out that the German Chancellor refused to meet with Joe Biden, which is a suggestion that there are rifts within NATO in terms of how best to handle this crisis. I mean, there's all sorts of problems about this. I mean, my problem with a lot of this is the way in which a lot of this is being interpreted, and I do feel a bit cynical. But you know, we've been told that there are 100,000 Russian troops massing on the border. That was the case last April. People were saying the same thing last April. And these troops that are there are being interpreted as a sign, certainly by the White House, as a sign that this is definitely imminent war. But why is it not being interpreted as what the Russians say it's for, which is a precaution against NATO advance? I don't understand why we're not sort of taking that on board. Because I don't think necessarily their fears are sound necessarily, but they are legitimate fears. They see NATO expansion as a real problem. They see it as a land grab. They see them going into Estonia and Latvia and Hungary, and they see this is a problem that's creeping ever closer. Yeah. So you know, and I'm not making a judgment about whether those are founded or not.
Sticking up for Russia.
I'm just saying I don't know whether why would it be in Russia's interests to go to war here? I mean, we know that a lot of the problems with Germany at the moment is about this pipeline, and they don't want that deal to break down. Putin knows that people at home are not pro-war. That I don't see what... It's almost as though all this talk from the White House about, this imminent war, it's almost like they're wanting it to... Not wanting it to happen, but like they might even precipitate it inadvertently.
Talking it up.
Well, they're raising the temperature by doing this, right? So if something might lead to war, it is potentially all of the rhetoric and the way in which it's being reported. I'm not, like, doing a big pro-Russia... I'm just saying... No. It's been striking to me how it hasn't really been balanced in terms of the way it's been reported here. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, OK, I thought you were trying to get on Russia Today or something. The only thing I noticed about this story, Andrew summed it up much better than me, but the fact they refused a meeting with Joe Biden, all I want to say is would never have happened to Donald J. Trump, would it?
No way.
It's just too tough, too strong for that.
You don't miss an opportunity to meet the Trump,
Sleepy
do you?
Joe. It's Sleepy Joe Biden. He's a loser. Apparently, he's a sad loser.
Any opportunity to get a pro-Trump point.
I'm just giving the balance.
By the way, if things do get, and obviously I really hope that things don't get worse on the border to Ukraine. I hope an invasion doesn't happen. I worry for the implications if it does, Nick. But it would probably save Boris Johnson's premiership, wouldn't it?
Oh, good point. If you could, it's the ultimate dead cat, isn't it?
Yeah.
World War III.
Yeah, just a bit. And on that note, lots more to come. including a big swimming story. I'll get to that, to Trans Round. You won't want to miss it. More big stories from the papers. Netflix in trouble. I'll see you in 2.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. Myself, Mark Dolan, in the company of 2 top comedians, Nick Dixon and Andrew Doyle. That's right. Now, our next story is from Saturday's Sun. We all knew China liked to invade areas of interest, but we didn't know they extended to, Andrew, your nether regions.
No, it's an interesting one, this. So in terms of COVID swabs, and of course we all do the lateral flow tests, and we're quite used to them now, and China, they sort of pioneered the anal swab, and they want to bring it back before the Winter Olympics. So they're saying that they're going to bring it back. I mean, a lot of people are complaining. I mean, if you think in this article here in the Sun, it says that Japan is calling on China to stop using the undignified test, as some passengers, people who are flying in, consider that it causes them psychological distress. Of course it does.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, I don't know what to say about this other than you absolutely shouldn't do it. And apparently China ordered American diplomats to undergo anal tests when they arrived. I mean, they're having a laugh, aren't they? They're just using this as an opportunity to...
Well, I was going to say about that. I mean, they make us do the tests here, obviously, but what I was going to say was China, the fact that China made the diplomats do it, don't you think this is just China fighting the war on all fronts? They're spying on Barry Gardner. They're forcing diplomats to do anal swabs. There's no stone unturned in the kind of all-encompassing Cold War against the West.
I suppose their argument would be that these are apparently more effective tests.
Well, is that right? Is there a sort of medicinal and biological argument for the anal what's-it?
There is, but let's face it, it can be exploited by those with an agenda.
Yes.
I would suggest.
If it falls into the wrong hands, so to speak.
Well, yes.
Well, when it comes to the anal penetration, is it just a matter of personal choice? Is that the answer?
No, but I think if you're arriving here for the Winter Olympics, they would make you do it, wouldn't they?
Yes, it says citizens' rectums are being swabbed just 2 weeks before the Winter Olympics.
I mean, I find this quite a distressing and
It's a horrible story. Imagine having to cover this story on a really serious show as well. Luckily, we can have a laugh.
Swabbed rectums. It sounds like an album title from a kind of heavy metal band in the 80s, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it?
A Meatloaf
bestseller, very big seller in Japan.
Yeah.
Popular in New Zealand. Well, look, moving swiftly on. University of Pennsylvania swimmers, in fact, one particular swimmer has accused a trans teammate, Leah Thomas, of a plot to lose against transgender Yale swimmer. This is from the Mail, Nick. Tell me more.
Yes, you've got the main point. So it's an anonymous teammate because she doesn't want to be attacked and pilloried. She suspects that the the male to female swimmer. We talked about this on another show, and Diane was quite confused about it, quite reasonably, because it was quite confusing. But the male to female trans swimmer, who one suspects might win, lost to the female to male trans swimmer, and now this teammate is basically accusing the male to female trans person of essentially conspiring with the other swimmer to deliberately lose. She says that she was obviously not trying, and that they sort of colluded beforehand.
Because, of course, this case has been used to suggest that there is no advantage in being born male and going through male puberty. So that would explain why there might be suspicions.
Motive, yeah.
Why it might have been fixed.
Yeah, well, she puts that very well here. She says, looking at Leah's time, now Leah is the male to female trans person, I don't think she was trying. I know they're friends. I know they were talking about before the meet. I think she let her win to prove the point that OC, a female to male, beat me. So that is the accusation.
Interesting. But even if there was a case where that could happen and it was legitimate, and that person lost, or that person won legitimately, this doesn't mean that therefore means there is no advantage to being male in female sports, or having gone through male puberty, then transition, then going into to female sports, because there obviously is an advantage, and all the scientific consensus tells us there's an advantage. So I worry about this sort of story, because they take this one example, and of course there are exceptions in all sorts of stories. There are women who are much, much stronger than me, believe it or not, most of them probably. But I mean, shouldn't be used as an excuse to legitimise what is an unfair practice in sports.
Well, it sort of still proves your point, because it's only one case, and even this one case, there's suspicion that it was rigged.
Right.
So it probably backs up your point even more.
Probably does. Most things do.
Nick, from trans rights in sport to the Kit Kat shuffle, tell me more.
Well, this is in the Mirror. Kit Kat wrappers with images of Hindu gods withdrawn after Nestle slam. There you go. You got a little picture there of a Hindu god on a Kit Kat wrapper. Now, it seems the big offence about this was not just that they were there and that they were on Kit Kats. It was that they were going to be thrown away and trampled and so on. And many Indians felt this was inappropriate because, but of course, Nestle said it was supposed to be a celebration of the culture, but that was not how it was received. I started to think about it. I mean, would I mind if Jesus was on the Kit Kats? He doesn't get enough coverage these days anymore. It'd
be nice to see him again, wouldn't it?
It'd be nice to see him. It's not really a graven image because it is Jesus. I mean, you would crumple it up. Does that really matter? They were offended by it, and I think I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it was well intentioned, wasn't it? I mean, the idea was to sort of celebrate cultural enrichment, and it was about a specific aspect of this culture. And but it would be the equivalent, I think, would be as if they were if they were selling Kit Kats in Italy and they wanted to celebrate the Vatican, and you might have a picture of a church with a crucifix on, say, and it's not like they were doing a range of deities as a kind of special thing in the snack. I don't think that's what it was. I do think a lot of these things are always well intentioned, but they don't think it through to the end. And the end point of this is, of course, you have to throw the wrapper away.
Yeah.
Well, does it feel like another multinational corporation getting sort of basically backfiring with a woke policy? Does it feel that?
That sort of thing happens all the time, because there was that case, wasn't there, in Spain, where they had the stamps, the equality stamps, and they were representing different skin colours. But the problem with that is that the darker the skin colours got, the cheaper the stamp value got. And their idea was you would have to put more of those stamps on to post something, so it would be more representative of, say, black people or brown people. But it actually just looked like they were saying those people are worth less. You know, so it backfired. It was completely well-intentioned, totally backfired.
I sympathise with the people who don't want to see the Hindu gods on a Kit Kat, but I also think it is...
When you put it like that, it sounds quite degrading.
It is also nearly impossible to do one of these corporate things and get it right now, isn't it, with the internet? It's almost impossible to not offend someone.
Sting did something very clever, the pop star. He released one of his songs, and he basically gifted it to Jaguar. And they used this song as a new single, and it featured in a Jaguar advert. And he said, I did that because I'm so old now, I'm not going to get on the radio. But if it's on an advert, people will hear the song and then they'll buy it. And it was a really successful song. So I just wonder whether if
what was it called? Jaguars are really good.
It was. I shouldn't sing on TV, but it's that one that used to go, where, away, yeah. You know that one?
I mean, it sounds wonderful.
That's uncanny, isn't it? Was it like Sting was sitting there?
It sounded more like Enya when you did it.
In or man, away, yeah.
And how does that relate to the Kit Kat? Just to clear it in my mind.
Well, I wanted to say that I wonder whether if Jesus returns, which of course many Christians anticipate that moment, yourself included, Nicholas.
Yeah.
Perhaps he could replace Gary Lineker as the face of Walker's Crisps. Just to get on the telly, just for a bit of distribution. You know what I mean?
That sentence was going.
Just to
where it went.
You know, just to get
his message out there.
To get a few eyeballs on him again.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind.
Perhaps he could appear.
Maybe Gary Lineker is the second coming.
Well,
have you ever thought about that?
No, I can't back that up. No.
Well, I mean, I can't back it up with evidence. It's just speculation.
Jesus was virtuous. He wouldn't virtue signal like Gary Lineker.
Yeah.
Please, let's not crucify Gary Lineker. Now, a rather dystopian story next. From Saturday's Express, Elon Musk wants to put microchips in our brains. What could possibly go wrong, Andrew?
Yeah, so this is... he wants to put this... yes, it's a microchip that would allow people to control their smartphones with their minds, OK? But it is targeted at people with paralysis, people who are not able to operate things themselves. So I have nothing but sympathy for people in that position. This is obviously another hugely well-intentioned thing, because you imagine if you're paralysed, this would be a lifesaver, right? But I think he's almost playing God, because we're moving into that thing of transhumanism. You've heard of transhumanism, this idea we're going to update humanity with sort of microchips, and we're going to be half computer like Robocop, and it's going to make us more interesting, more intelligent. We're going to have access to all the information at once.
Live forever.
And I think that terrifies the hell out of me. I think if you watch any sci-fi films, if you watch Terminator 2, as I have many times, you know where this leads. I think I find it... it's that question in Jurassic Park. You remember Jeff Goldblum says the scientists were so concerned with whether they could, they never stopped to think whether they should. I mean, he says it better than me.
I think you were going to say life finds a way.
Well, there's that as well. It does.
It's a noble cause, like you say. And the question is, do you want Elon Musk? Now, do you want Elon Musk to have the power to control your mind? If it had to be anyone, I would go with Musk over Gates any day. Do you know what I mean?
Is that right?
He seems like the good one, doesn't he? We can't be sure, but he seems kind of like the cool billionaire. Notably, the other day, he said we needed to up our birth rate, whereas all the other billionaires seem to be Malthusians who say there's too many people on the planet, we need to get rid of them all. Musk is like, no, we need more people. And I think he's a bit of a ledge. He's got a flamethrower.
Yeah, but I don't think it's... Yeah, I agree.
But should he control your mind? Not necessarily.
I think no one should control anyone else's mind anyway. And the idea
what do you say about the advantage for paralysed people?
Well, I think that's... of course, as I say, I'm sympathetic to them, and I would love for people to put money into a way to develop and help people in that situation. But I think upgrading humanity is not the way to do it, because I tell you what, your intentions might be great now. It might help a few people now, and then 10 years down the line, you've got killer robot cyborgs who are, eating our spleens.
It's exactly what I said about the anal swabs. If it falls into the wrong hands,
it's exactly the same as the anal swab story.
Moving swiftly on from the anal swabs, Nick, you've got a story about, it's in the Mirror, and it relates to children and face masks.
Yes, face mask, Mark. One big topic for you.
It is.
Outrage as teacher pictured taping COVID mask across pupil's mouth in class, and this was in North Penn. I think it's...
I thought you were going to say North Korea.
No, it should be.
No such luck, just America.
So, it's basically a viral photo of a teacher. It went viral. Someone put it on Facebook, and it's them taping a mask over a kid's face. Completely outrageous. We saw actually GB's own Sophie Corcoran the other day talking about treatment of kids in schools, closure of schools, masks, and how horrific it's all been. We've exploited. We've sort of hung kids out to dry this whole time. I think the last couple of years we've forced these tests on them, forced them to wear masks. There's been all these stories about isolating children in their own homes in weird ways.
Yeah.
So I think kids have borne the brunt of this in a horrible way. And this is another example. We shouldn't bully this one teacher. The mother said she didn't mean it to get this out of hand. She only just shared it on a private Facebook thing. So we shouldn't bully that one person, but it is appalling.
What's the context? I mean, I just saw that and I thought, is this a joke that went wrong and maybe we're not seeing the full context or something like that? I mean, I always worry about these viral things.
Correct.
You always miss something. And maybe I used to be a teacher. Kids can be annoying. Maybe she just wanted to shut up. Yeah. Maybe it's just an excuse to shut them up.
That's outrageous.
I don't know. I'm saying maybe. I said maybe.
What my guess would be, and it's only a guess, that sometimes kids, they're messing around with their mask, it's hard to keep it on. She probably just thought this will be easier to keep it on.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make it okay. Kids shouldn't be masked in schools anyway. Thank God it's ending. Am I right, Mark?
Yeah, I think it's coming to an end. Obviously, the mask mandate will be lifted across England as of Thursday, and there are no masks in schools at the moment, although some universities and schools are continuing with the mask. I mean, it seems to be now that the government have got one set of rules.
I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why it's bad as a teacher. A huge aspect of communication is through the way you gesticulate and your facial expression, and, it's not good.
What about the snotty kids, though? Maybe that's a blessing.
There is that.
Yeah, the sneezers.
You found a silver lining. But you're right, all the stats are that it massively impairs communication.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, look, I'm sure that one is going to continue. The Weekend FT is reporting that Netflix have been doing a bit too much chilling and not reproducing quality content. Andrew.
Well, it depends on how you read the story. I mean, so their stock tumbled more than 20% on Friday. Apparently, this is happening across the board with various companies that massively blossomed through the pandemic. So it's happened also with Peloton, who
Bicycles?
I had to Google because I don't do any physical exercise, but they create fitness products, this thing called Fitness, which I've heard about. And there's also Zoom. Zoom have had the same thing. So all of these companies that did hugely well out of the pandemic, and now, of course, inevitably, now that the pandemic's coming to an end, they're going to do less well, and that's being reflected in the stocks. But similarly, I think we shouldn't bypass the point that Netflix is bound to be being affected by the way it's been completely ideologically captured, and all of its entertainment is now just effectively a sermon, which gets very, very boring when you watch it. Like, I get so bored. I mean, I heard Toby Young talk about this the other day. He was saying about how he has to sort of zone out, because you have to zone out the social justice politics, the identity politics within popular entertainment. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to watch anything anymore.
Yeah. I can't.
And you can't. No, and I can't either. And I find it feels like there's someone behind you, sort of like lecturing you about, about.
But
what
isn't
you should
Netflix
think.
supposed to be an open marketplace? I mean, isn't it a platform in which they provide a budget to talented directors and writers and just say, here's the money, go and make something?
Well, it should be.
No,
that was the HBO model, which gave us The Sopranos, wasn't it? And Curb Your Enthusiasm and other hits.
Well, I suppose it's
no, but the Obamas are involved in Netflix, so it's never going to be neutral, is it?
I mean, but it's always been the case that producers often involve themselves too much in creative projects. What people should do is choose artists that they trust, give them the money and let them get on with it. That's how the best work is created. That's how the system of patronage in the Renaissance period worked. People weren't getting involved and sort of demanding well, they were actually, but the best work came about because of artistic freedom.
Only you, Andrew, could make a link to patronage in the Renaissance period from Netflix.
Well, no,
that's impressive.
No, but I think there is a point there insofar as, like, yes, when the Vatican commissioned the Sistine Chapel, they did want holy pictures, right? But there was so much artistic freedom within that, whereas I think Netflix is sort of saying, well, I don't know what they're saying, but so much of their work now is just an ideological lesson. It's boring. It's banal.
They're claiming this has to do with things like poverty in Latin America, why their stock price has gone up. But like you say, it's probably just they could just make better shows. There was some good. I bought it again just for Selling Sunset. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen that.
It's not ideological. It's just about selling real estate in LA. It's brilliant.
That sounds fascinating.
Just a bit. Well, the message to Netflix: go woke, no remote. I think that works. Now, Britain's oldest toaster refuses to burn out, even after 70 years. This is in the Telegraph, Nick.
Absolutely. A hard-hitting story about an old toaster from...
Is it August already?
This guy is... it's a 70-year-old toaster. So this person, who is it, Jimmy James, he got this toaster in 1949, and all he does is keep repairing it. And he says it's a make-do and mend spirit that he's gotten from his parents, and you don't need to keep buying things again. But I'm a little bit concerned about the crumbs. I'm thinking about, are there crumbs from the 50s in this machine?
There will be.
That troubles me. The other thing that bothers me is this story being fed to us as a kind of accept lower living standards, guys, because we've got all these energy price rise, we've got inflation, and you're going to have to, we've got the climate, so you're all going to have to, live in a cold house eating bugs. I'm like, is this another story like keep your toaster for 70 years?
This is more nudge politics.
Nudge politics, yeah.
Isn't it just a sentimental story? Because I think he inherited it from his parents. The toaster is actually older than him, right? And I think he connects it in his mind to his parents and his childhood. I think it's just as, the way that you stitch up your teddy bear from when you were a kid, right. And it breaks a bit and you stitched up. But also it is a reminder, isn't it, that we live in a society where all of our technology deliberately is designed to break.
Built-in obsolescence.
Built-in obsolescence, exactly. Like my iPhone now doesn't charge anywhere near as quickly as it used to, and maybe that's because I've done something wrong with it, but I don't think so.
Too much sexting, I think.
Well, I can't give up that vice. My only joy.
The guy's got to live. Now, I love this story. The S&M, M&M is no more. Is this wokery gone mad, or the overdue desexualisation of confectionery, Nick?
Yes, M&M's go woke. Chocolate characters ditch stilettos for trainers in inclusive society, The Express. So this is a brilliant story about the M&M's. They've said in the press release, Mars, that their global commitment to creating a world where everyone feels they belong and society is inclusive, and they're doing this via the medium of little chocolates. So my favourite bit is Mars wants the green M&M to be better represented, to reflect confidence and empowerment as a strong female and known for much more than her boots. So it's a feminist. The green M&M has become a feminist icon, essentially, Mark.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, does anyone care?
Oh, but this is what the suffragettes fought for. They were thinking about equal representation in confectionery. That's definitely what this was about. I mean, it's weird, isn't it, that the fact that the shoe, so the green M&M used to have a high-heeled shoe and is now going to be replaced with sneakers. And they say because they want their M&Ms, these anthropomorphized M&Ms, to have more nuanced personalities. We're only going to eat them.
No, that's
it doesn't seem necessary.
And is eating them a microaggression, do you think?
Well, it's like you're eating feminists.
It's almost a macroaggression, isn't it, when you're eating the whole thing?
I always mistrust any kind of product that can speak and is telling you to buy them and eat them. You know, it's like when I saw some bacon being sold, when there was a cartoon of a pig on the front saying, like, why do you want me to eat you? You're a psychopath. You're a psychopathic pig. I don't want any part of that.
It's not a microaggression. It's a molar aggression, isn't it?
Good point.
I mean, honestly, I do think it's mad. What does your footwear say about you, though? Because I do know, my mother always used to say you can judge somebody by their footwear. And occasionally someone will be very well dressed and have really scruffy shoes and it lets it all down.
Yeah, but I would have said that they're saying they want to highlight the importance of self-expression. I think the M&M with high heels is being more flamboyant and self-expressive than an M&M in sneakers. Yes. Come on, that's the the super fantastic fabulous M&M, not some sort of one that just wants to go for a jog.
Tomboy M&M we've got now.
Yeah, I guess that's what is that what they're doing? Reducing the gender roles of M&Ms?
That's essentially it, and they're going to be a professional height as well. So
what's a professional height?
I really don't know.
What does that mean?
I've got no idea. But yeah, it's an important story.
I'm glad we
Well, I think they're nuts. Well, half of them are anyway. The other ones are just chocolate.
That's why he's the pro.
Fantastic stuff. Well, look, thanks to my amazing panel tonight. I think you'll agree they over-delivered. The brilliant Nick Dixon, the marvellous Andrew Doyle. Don't forget, Andrew Doyle's back for Free Speech Nation on Sunday. And we'll have 2 more top comedians with us at 11 tomorrow. I'm back in the hot seat at 9 o'clock for another big show. So do join me for 3 hours of fun. Thanks for your company. Keep it GB News. We'll see you tomorrow.
Good evening. It's not as cold out there this evening as yesterday because there's more cloud around. That cloud is going to make for quite a grey weekend for most of us, but a few spots will continue to see a bit of sunshine, and most of us are not going to see any rain thanks to this area of high pressure that's been ambling across the country for the past couple of days and will stick around for much of next week. There are weather fronts approaching the far northwest and across the Highlands, the Western Isles. There will at times be some drizzly rain, certainly through this evening and overnight, but for most it is a dry night, but with a lot of cloud. Still some breaks in the cloud across eastern England, parts of the south, and where those breaks persist, a touch of frost is still going to happen. But for most towns and cities, warmer than last night, that cloud acting like a blanket and keeping temperatures above freezing. That cloud, though, is obviously going to blot out the sun for most of us during Saturday. Parts of eastern England, northeast Scotland, and across parts of the south will see some breaks in the cloud and a bit of sunshine. That cloud, though, quite thick across the Highlands, Argyll and Bute, with some rain at times here. Otherwise, though, most of us will be dry. Temperatures a little higher than today's values, 7, 8. Top temperatures probably northern Scotland, where we could reach 11 or 12 with a bit of brightness, say Caithness and Sutherland or the Moray Firth. Still some patchy rain across the Highlands, the Western Isles during Saturday evening, but elsewhere, if you're heading out tomorrow evening, it should be dry, but again, it will be fairly cloudy. Again, a few pockets of frost possible on Sunday morning, and again, during the day, we'll see a few breaks in the cloud, maybe parts of East Wales, northeast England, northeast Scotland, so some blue sky here. Otherwise, most of us just rather glum but dry. The main exception to that dry weather again, the far northwest, where there'll be some rain and drizzle over the Highlands. Quite breezy all weekend across the northwest, those winds strengthening further on Sunday. Temperatures again 8, 9, 10 Celsius. At times weather fronts will push into the far north.